Hey everybody, this is Politics with Avi, and I'm Avi. So if we're able to get a little bit of peace and quiet, I'll be able to talk a little bit about International Political Theory by K. Hutchings and Thucydides, Machiavelli, Hugo Grotius, Thomas Hobbes, and Karl Marx. Unfortunately, we have some technical issues with the sound around, so we might not be able to cover these topics right now, but whenever we can, we will proceed to learning some more stuff through my study guide on the topics I already spoke about. I'm seriously having a really hard day shooting today. I got attacked by a dog. There was so many kids around, everything like that, so I'm not even sure I can make it, but just wait up a little bit more and I'll try my best. So what I'll be doing here is reading a few excerpts from my 2011 study guide, just so I could give you guys an idea of what I spoke about last time. So I spoke about a number of proponents of different theories and important people for their time. One of them was Thucydides. In this study guide from LIC, what we have as information is that Thucydides was a native of Athens. We do not know his exact dates of birth and death, and we know of him largely through his work chronicling the ongoing wars between the Athenian Empire and other Greek states in the 5th century BCE. History of the Peloponnesian War, Brown et al., 2002, pp. 34 until 60, Thucydides 1972. See also Bosher 1998, chapter 4. This is basically where the information was located at and what books you would need to attain so you could have understanding of what actually went on at those times and what he wrote about, and him, of course. In this work, Thucydides sought to present an objective account of the Peloponnesian War, both on the basis of his own direct knowledge of the conflict. He participated as a general on the Athenian side in the war, and that of other eyewitnesses. His account of the war has mainly been interpreted as an early formation of a realist doctrine of international politics, where you need to see chapter 3 in order to understand what they're talking about. And also, the key tenets of this realism are claimed to be a cynical view of human nature and of human ability to control events, the identification of interests rather than justice as being at the heart of political decisions in foreign policy and perhaps in politics as such, a recognition of the constraints imposed on the behavior of political units, in this instance Greek city-states, by the structure of relations between those units where there is no overarching authority. So that's basically some of the main things I could read you about from the study guide for Thucydides. Next little excerpt that I'm going to read you of is about Machiavelli, 1469 till 1527 CE. CE means after Christ, obviously. So, here we go. Machiavelli lived in Italy at a time which is often referred to as the European Renaissance, meaning literally rebirth, because it included a great revival of interest in non-Christian, ancient Greek, and Roman texts and ideas. At this time, also many of the practices of diplomacy and foreign policy that later became part of the European state system were being initiated. Although his world remains remote from ours, it is in many ways more familiar in terms of both its ideas and institutions than the worlds of Thucydides and, for example, Augustine of Hippo, of whom you could read in Forsyth and Keene's Super, 1992, Chapter 4, Williams, 1992, Chapter 4, Bosher, 1998, Chapter 5. Machiavelli is most famous for his short book, The Prince, El Principe. See Machiavelli excerpts in Brown et al. Et al. Is Latin for and others. So Brown and others, page 257 till 61, and Machiavelli, 1988, in which he offers advice to rulers about how to gain and maintain power in the context of the Italian city-states of the 15th century. Other works in which he discusses politics in general and international politics in particular are The Art of War, Machiavelli 2003, and discourses on the first 10 books of Livy. Machiavelli excerpts in Brown and Others, page 262 until 269. Machiavelli, 1997. As with Thucydides, Machiavelli's primary concerns are with analyzing the practice of politics, and these concerns reflect his own experience as a diplomat and as someone who suffered for his political loyalties. About this, you can read in Brown and Others, page 257. The prince is famous because instead of following the traditional Christian view that princes should follow the precepts of Christian morality in order to be good rulers, about this you can read in Augustine excerpts from Brown and Others, page 123. Machiavelli argues that in order for princes to be successful at gaining and maintaining power, they need to be prepared to act against morality and rely on force and cunning. The lessons of Machiavelli's work for international politics are in many ways reminiscent of Thucydides's. Machiavelli teaches us that if polities are to be stable and rich, then leaders have to enforce strong order within the city and inspire fear in its neighborhoods. However, it is misleading to see Machiavelli as simply endorsing the right of the stronger. In his major work on politics, The Discourses, he is interested in political power as something that promotes the good of the best kind of political order, the republic. To be a citizen of a republic, a participant in ruling one's own community, is for Machiavelli the highest purpose of politics. Three aspects of Machiavelli's arguments can be highlighted as having particular relevance for theorizing international politics: the logic of means and ends in politics in general, the idea that state interests, what later becomes known under the phrase raison d'état, or reasons of state, is the key determinant of foreign policy, and the idea of a cyclical pattern in political affairs in which rulers and their kingdoms gain and lose power through combinations of human ability, what Machiavelli refers to as virtues, human weaknesses, and the activities of fortune, fortuna. So, Hugo Grotius, he's the next one up that we're going to speak about. He lived from 1583 until 1645. Grotius' work provides a sharp contrast to the work of Machiavelli discussed in the previous section and the work of Hobbes, to which we turn in the next section. And of this you need to see Boucher 1998 chapter 9 and Thompson 1994 chapter 8. Like all of the thinkers to be discussed, he was very much of a man of his time and place, of which you can read as being so in Brown and Others, page 325. Whereas Machiavelli's time and place was dominated by the warring city-states of Italy and their powerful neighbors in Spain and France, Grotius' time was dominated by the effects of the religious Reformation in Europe and the subsequent wars of religion. He himself was a lawyer and at one point acted as advocate for the Dutch East India Company. In his later life, he was preoccupied by efforts to reconcile Catholic and Protestant Christianity in Europe. He died shortly before the Peace of Westphalia, 1648, which is generally seen as founding the modern state system. Grotius wrote widely on law, theology, philosophy, and literature, but the most important aspects of his work from the point of view of international politics are the idea of universal natural law, and the idea that relations between states could be law-governed even when states were at war with one another, which you could read about in Grotius 1925. Thomas Hobbes is the next one up to be identified, and that is through mentioning when he lived, which is 1588 to 1679. Hobbes was a contemporary of Grotius, and like Grotius in his work on politics, he responded to the concerns of his time and place. In his case, however, his time and place was dominated by the experience of the English Civil War in the 1640s and 50s. Hobbes 1996, and also you could see Forsyth and Keenstopper 1992 chapter 5, Williams 1992 chapter 6, Hamsfer, Monk 1992 chapter 1, Boucher 1998 chapter 7. Unlike Grotius, Hobbes did not write a great deal explicitly about international politics. His importance for international political theory comes from his theory of political obligation within the state and its implications for understanding of state sovereignty and the relation between political authority at the internal domestic level, the link between ruler and ruled, and the external international level, the link between separating ruling powers. The key to Hobbes' account of both internal and external political relations is his powerful dramatization of a world without political authority, perhaps modeled on the anarchic condition of a country in civil war, the so-called state of nature. It is worth noting that Hobbes translated Thucydides' work and was an admirer of his account of politics. Nevertheless, Hobbes' account of a state of nature is considered bleaker even than Thucydides' most pessimistic analysis of interstate violence. We will look first at the state of nature and then its implication for political authority within the state and between states, in order to have a further understanding of what exactly he meant, the methodology he used to analyze everything, and how and what kind of resolutions we could adopt by using his means of understanding. As I said previously, you could do that through reading and looking at those two main points in within the works that speak of him and the works that he has written. And last but not least, we're going to be talking about Karl Marx. As of course, as we did before, he lived from 1818 to 1883. So although many of the thinkers discussed above were politically involved in one way or another, Thucydides was a general, Machiavelli tortured when the Florentine Republican regime fell from power, Grotius was a political exile for many years, etc. Marx stands out as someone whose whole life's work was dedicated to the cause of social and political revolution, both in his theoretical work and his practice. In partnership with his colleague and supporter, Friedrich Engels, 1820-1895, with whom he co-wrote several works, including the Communist Manifesto, Marx and Engels, Excerpt in Brown and Others, page 572 till 574, where you can find this. Marx sought to explain and predict the shape of the contemporary world, which in the first half of the 19th century in Europe had been fundamentally transformed by political and industrial revolution. Marx 1996, see also Forsyth and Keene Soper 1993 chapter 6, Williams 1992 chapter 11, Galli 1917-8 chapter 4, Boscher 1998 chapter 15, Hampshire Monk 1992 chapter X, which means 10. He was profoundly interested in international affairs. However, it is not his comments on foreign policy or imperialism that have been influential on international political theory. Instead, it is his theories of history and of capitalism. Particularly significant within these theories are his account of history as the history of class struggle, and his account of capitalism and opposition to it as inherently international. Thank you so much for bearing with me, our little technical problems, which are actually a blessing for a lot of people. And once again, I hope you learned something from my hard work and reading. But yeah, I hope this was interesting enough for you guys to follow. I'm sorry that it's not really like in a show type of format right now, but I'm doing the best I can. I've prepared a few more lectures that have to do more with the real emphasis of what is political science, what's the meaning of it, what is it as a concept, what methodology stands behind it, and it's going to be a few more lectures until you guys really have the proper understanding that is necessary for you to be able to really realize the most important parts of politics and, you know, enjoy it professionally. So thank you for sharing your time with me, and see you again next time. This was Politics with Avi, and I'm Avi.